Hello, welcome to Tobisonics. Please like, subscribe, follow. You know the drill. It is Tuesday, the 22nd of December, 2020. I hope you're all keeping well in these difficult times and that you're all set up and ready for Christmas. In this week's episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to edit and process old, archived public domain recordings for use in a modern pop production. 2 weeks ago, we took a public domain recording of President Eisenhower's farewell address to the nation from 1961. And we cleaned it up using iZotope RX7 plugins. If you haven't seen that video yet, there's a link for it in the description, and there should be one floating around on the screen. We're going to be picking up from where we left off. We're going to drop it back into the production and take a look at how I used editing and effects to help the Eisenhower speech sit well in the modern pop production.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Right now, we're listening to the Eisenhower speech as it came in from RX7, and we've got the bass line and the hi-hat going, so you've got a little bit of musical context so you can hear it running against it. If we stop the playback for a moment, you might have noticed that there's a section where Eisenhower stumbles over his words a little bit. Let's have a quick listen to that.
We must guard against the
It doesn't really bother me that he makes that mistake, but once we've got it set against that metronomic sequencer bass line, it really stands out. It really throws the track off. I think we're going to have to go in, have a quick edit, and see if we can do something about it. The stumbled line happens here.
Guard.
So we're going to have to cut this section out. Now, the way I like to do that is I'll start with things on the grid. Let's open it up and see how close that gets us. Now I'm going to come off the grid, and I'm going to pull in pretty tight to this. Cubase is quite good at this. It will actually show you pretty much where you want to be. For me, I'd probably go there. And then we're going to come to the other end of that line. And again, Cubase is helping us out a lot here. You can see it's put a little line here to help us. And again, I'm just going to take it slightly earlier than that, I think. So the first thing we can do if we want, we can just check by just muting this section and then playing it back. Now, obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a gap, but it should be enough to just let us know if it's flowing well enough.
We must guard against.
Now we know that we can take this section out, so let's just delete that. And all we're going to do is, very simply, just move the cursor back to the gap. We've got this section highlighted, and we're just going to use Control-L and connect the two tracks. Let's play it through and see how that sounds.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
And you can hear now that once it's set against that bass and hi-hat, it is much smoother. It feels much more natural. And even though we've actually contrived it by taking a small section out, for me, it feels like it's sitting a lot more happily in the mix. Now that we've got our edit, we need to start using some effects to add some texture, some weight, and some height to the Eisenhower speech. And we're going to start off with an old favorite, iZotope vinyl.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
So here we have iZotope vinyl running, and we've got it running at full volume. And you can hear that the tone is not dissimilar from what we've already got. I didn't really want to merge kind of one type of kind of artificial lo-fi with the lo-fi we already have.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Now we've got it set back down at the production level. This is how it mixes into the track. And you can hear what it's giving it. It's just a little bit more kind of texture, a little bit more kind of definition, a little bit more presence. You'll notice that we've got a bunch of other plugins sat here that at the moment they're bypassed. What these things are going to do is they're going to help us just tighten up that vinyl just a little bit. So I'm going to play it again, and I'm just going to bring in the plugins one by one so you can hear the difference that they make.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
As we add in each of the effects, you can hear that the iZotope vinyl is just sort of tightening and tidying up. The compressor just kind of helps it sit within the movement of the dry vocal line. Then we add in the Pro Q, get rid of some of those lows that we really don't need. We don't want to be mudding up any bass lines or anything like that. We've got enough lower vocals as it is. And then we've got that brick wall limiter that is just stopping it from kind of popping over the top. We want those iZotope vinyl transients to sit within the transients of the dry signal.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Next up, we've got the tried and true Waves Morphoda whisper track, and you can see we're using the preset Pensado Whisper. I've also got it set up at Unity right now so you can hear really clearly what it's doing. In addition to that, the extra plugins that I've got in the signal chain, the compressor, the EQ, and the brick wall limiter are also on. They're doing exactly the same job they were doing with the iZotope vinyl. There's no need to go through all that again.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Now that we've got it blended back down at production level, you can hear that the Morphoda is doing a couple of things for us. It's adding a really nice kind of texture to the voice, and it's also giving a little bit of edge, which is helping our ear pick it up. But more than that, it's also shifting about a little bit in the stereo field, which is giving us a little bit more width and a little bit more size to the voice.
In the councils of government, we must guard against acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Last up, another old favorite, EchoBoy, and we've got it set on a ping-pong delay, and we're using the distressed emulation, which I really like for ping-pong delays. It's something about it, it really kind of squeezes it and really sits it very nicely in the mix and kind of colors the tone up just right. With the other two plugins, what we did at this point is we blended it back down to production level. But before we do that with EchoBoy, I just want to bring in another plugin. Here we go. We've got a FabFilter Pro C, and as you can see, we've got it sidechained, and that sidechain is set to the dry vocal track. This is actually set before EchoBoy in the chain, and what it's going to do is it's going to duck the delay for us. Let's drop that out of bypass and have a little bit of a listen to what it's doing and how effective it is, even with the delay cranked right up at Unity.
In the councils of government, we must guard against acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
And you should be able to hear immediately how much effect that ducking compression is having. It's really cleaning out a lot of the delay signal when the voice is speaking. Now, because I can't help myself, I'll be a little bit cleverer than that. You can see over here on the stereo link, I've got it set at a blend between stereo and mid. Why do I do it that way? Well, because I think it helps give a little bit of extra width to the delay, and at the same time, it also seems to help to kind of center the dry track itself in contrast. Right, let's bring the bass and the hi-hat back in to give us a little bit of context, and we'll start off with just the raw vocal, the RX processing, and the edit. That's all. And then we'll bring in the effects layers one by one, vinyl, whisper, echo, so that you can hear the difference as it builds into the track.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. In the councils of government, We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
And you can hear that each time we add in a layer of effects, we're getting a little bit of something for that voice. We get that little bit of texture, that little bit of presence from vinyl. We got a sort of a deeper, kind of more sort of spongy, kind of low-mid texture from the Morphoda. And we get that really nice kind of stereo shift that gives a little bit of width. And then on the ping-pong delay, we're getting some movement, we're getting a sense of depth from it. Yeah, it's a little bit up in the mix right now, but remember, we've just got the bass line and the hi-hat running. Once the synth's in there, once the riser's in there, you're not going to really notice that echo so much. If you found that interesting, please like, subscribe, follow, you know the drill. Military Industrial Complex is out right now on all streaming platforms and Bandcamp. Please check it out. Have a listen to the Eisenhower speech in context. If you have any questions about that or anything else to do with the production, feel free to ask me in the comments below or via social media at Tobisonics. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, I'm on it. If right now you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, thank you for watching. If you're on Mixcloud or the podcast, thank you for listening. I have a new production coming out called Eye of the Storm. It was going to be out January 15th. I'm actually going to push it back 5 days to January 20th, just to give us a little bit more time around Christmas, New Year to get everything sorted out. Until next Tuesday, good night and good noise. Stay safe and stay healthy.